Next speaker, big round of applause, Frank Guglieri, Director of Regional Safety Service, PMW BOCES.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. Frank Guglieri, Director of Regional Safety. I know a lot of you in here in a variety of different contexts, behavioral threat assessment, chemical hygiene, health and safety, security and safety, whatever it might be. Today, I am going to be talking a little bit about the threat landscape when it comes to technology. I am open if anybody wants to ask any questions. I've kind of just cherry-picked some things that I see. I don't want to say on a daily basis, but I'll see on a weekly basis that's kind of happening in the region. But I do want to encourage people to ask questions if you have questions. I will tell you, it's out there. This is just not the story of the news. You just may not be hearing about it. Swatting, hopefully you're all familiar about it. Basically what swatting is an attack that happens when somebody tries to get a law enforcement response to a specific location. We've had law enforcement swatting attacks happen at 911 centers. We've happened to have them at schools. Just so you know, the going rate on the dark web is $50 for 3 swatting calls. That's all it costs. So you can literally go on and, say, let's hit Lakeland and this is how we're going to do it. And I can pull up all those numbers that are on your website and do that call. And it's literally $50 in Bitcoin or some other type of transaction. I have, when we do the slide with our behavioral threat assessment, we actually show the advertisement from the dark web on how to do it. But since you're recording, this might go far and wide. I didn't want to send this thing out, right? I was doing my little part here. Hacking and phishing attempts. I have often said if I was on the other side of the law, I would be trying to hack and phish schools all the time because of the amount of students and the amount of adults that are in that building. On top of that, the amount of IT infrastructure that you have to have, and just at the level that you can now using AI. So one of the things that I'll say is when we look at AI, right, we see ChatGPT, we see all these wonderful things, Grok, all this type of stuff. But just so you know, on the dark web, there's AI that doesn't have all of the health and safety filters. So it doesn't have a quote unquote moral compass. You can have it do whatever you want to do. You can have it write viruses. You can have it write code to mimic human interface devices. I have my fun little toy here that I don't know if you may or may not recognize. I use this quite often. This is called the Flipper, right? It was a Kickstarter thing. So again, I don't know how much you do these kinds of things, right? But at 3 o'clock in the morning when I can't sleep, I start to think of things and I'm like, all right, if I wanted to create an all-in-one Flipper, a hacker device, like how would I do that, right? Like technology in 2025 should exist, right? So a few years ago, I was like Googling online and I found this device that people were doing. They were trying to create an all-in-one hacker device from basically little components that are freely available on Amazon and on AliExpress and all these kinds of things. So for $150, you can buy yourself an all-in-one hacker device to steal people's credentials, your swipe cards, your little key fobs. You can actually plug it into computers. It will mimic a keyboard. It will mimic a mouse. You can have it, execute PowerShell codes, malicious code, and all of those kinds of things. We are seeing these things at school, $150 in 2025. Some of these kids' salary allowances are through the roof. We have seen kids steal, for the most part, they've been stealing swipe card access, so they can swipe into the building at different times and stuff like that. And again, you think about how people just leave their swipe cards out on their desk, things like this. It takes about 4 seconds if you know what you're doing to swipe and steal it, and then you can just take this thing and put it on a swipe code and do it. So again, just kind of throwing the ideas out there of what exists in some of the technological realm. One of the biggest and probably most damaging things that we see are the deep fakes and the AI manipulation, right? So there's sites out there that can quote unquote nudify someone. So you can take a picture that's freely available on Instagram or whatever it is, and then you can make that picture nude. And that's what they do for people and their classmates. Most often we see this at the middle school level. Okay. On top of that, what you can also do is you can simulate video. These are all crimes, by the way, and they're all prosecuted. The Westchester County DA does a phenomenal presentation on this to students about, how bad this can be, for all of you. But we are seeing this happen more often than not. We're also, on the other end, fighting not only the malicious actors on the outside, but the students themselves, right? And again, with that adolescent brain and the way they're behaving, right, those inappropriate uses of devices. So while you have the AI that can create these naked pictures and these naked videos, we also have people doing it themselves and then sharing it amongst themselves, right? They don't realize the impact of that. So one of the biggest resources that I will tell you that has been so helpful to us is NCMEC, is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, right? And it's takeitdown.org. As soon as somebody comes to someone with this picture that they shared inadvertently, right? And I know I'm on camera here and I'm not doing this to play to the audience, but I got to give North Salem a shout out. They do this really great program with the kids where they have the one trusted adult. And you can tell Vince I'm giving him a positive shout out. Yeah. But Vince and I are high school rivals. But one of the things that I will say was we've had kids that will go to that one trusted adult and say, hey, I did something stupid. And immediately, if they can get that picture or that information, not only to the authorities, but to takeitdown.org, they can start scrubbing it from all the social media platforms. So, and not enough people know it. Takeitdown.org. There's also one for people who are over 18. I just don't remember the website itself. It's on that same website because people over 18 do stupid things too.
Never.
I am 46 and I'm still doing stupid things, right? Like if YouTube existed when I was young, I would not have a job. I just want everybody to know that. Cyberbullying exists as well. Is out there. We see it, the incessant, I'm interested to see what happens with cell phone use in schools right now that we've pulled cell phones, quote unquote, out of the hands. I do think there's a balance of that when it comes to safety and responsible use, right? Like I think, sometimes the more we restrict and we don't teach responsible use, I think sometimes the more it becomes a bigger problem. And then the last piece where risky and online behaviors come from, and this is a vector of attack that parents don't really understand. And I don't think that educators and people that are trying to protect children understand as well. So when, quote unquote, we were growing up, right, there were the chat rooms and all those kinds of things, and it was kind of like a lawless land out there, right? Now we have other things that are out there. We have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have Snapchat, and parents are trying to be well versed in that area, right? And you can message people privately through those things. Where people miss is that can also happen in every gaming community, every online community. And those are the communities where they're really targeting students, right? They're also doing it on Snapchat and all those other kinds of things as well. But people think, oh, they're just playing a video game. Yes, they're playing a video game and they're interacting with hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. And there's a number of collective organizations that are out there. Most recently, one of the big, news outlets did something on 764. We call it 764 and more, but there's a number of online collective groups, Purgatory being one of them, the COM being another one, O9A, the Order of the Nine Angles is another one. And basically what these communities are in general, right, because I'm just going to keep on to my time, right, in general, they exist to cause chaos, right? They do it through sextortion. They do it through targeting vulnerable communities. The FBI has put out numerous PSAs on it. And again, people are still not aware of it. And they're targeting 10 to 19-year-olds. Typically who they're looking for is they're looking for people with poor self-image issues. They're befriending them. They're, quote unquote, entering into a virtual relationship with them. They're soliciting pictures with them. And that's when the bribery and the sextortion starts. And it goes on and on. And the ultimate goal for these organizations is to have an individual kill themselves on stream. And that's how they'll gain ascendancy within their own organization. So I say this out there because if you start having some weird kind of behaviors with students, right, that are like off the charts, or they're doing some wild self-injurious behaviors, right, it might be worth, some questions in this realm. We've had it where they have told people, like, you're going to go up to the most popular girl in school and punch her in the face and get it on film. Like, that's the level of chaos. They're not trying to get anything monetary from it. They're trying to get film and picture and stuff like that to gain ascendancy in their organization. Some other social media concerns, right? Threats and hoaxes that are out there that are kind of reposted over and over again, right? I mean, we see this. This is kind of a daily occurrence. A lot of times we will train people, administrators most especially, when you get something that someone submits to look at it. A lot of times it's a screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot, and it's something that just kind of keeps recirculating. The challenges are not going away. Most recently, someone got killed doing another TikTok challenge. I think they were like, they tied a table to the back of a truck and they were like flying down the road, and then the kid got ejected off the table, right? We had challenges last year where they were damaging bathrooms, if you remember, right? On top of that, there was also the challenge where they wanted to, basically slap a teacher in the ass, right? And get it on film. Right. So again, they don't understand that that's a sexual crime, right? Like that they're doing, like it's like a big, miss that's happening. Copycat behavior, right? What are we seeing a lot with now these shooters? They're trying to live stream, right? Their attacks and the things that they're doing, and people want to do it for the likes and for the popularity. Digital footprint, which is, again, something that I think in digital literacy that we're trying to combat, this idea that this stuff is not going to go away and it's going to exist on the internet forever, right? We've seen people lose scholarships. We've seen people lose job opportunities, right? All these kinds of things, right? Even in this region, we've seen people that have had problematic social media posts and have lost a job or employment or whatever because of it, right? And then last but not least is we're also, fighting these big companies. If you're unaware, and this was probably one of the most wildest stories that I read, it was from a whistleblower who worked for Meta. And she wrote a book or whatever it was, just kind of talking about some of the tactics they use. And one of the tactics that they used, which again I thought was crazy, is the app that was being used was kind of scanning the photos in the person's phone. And what it would do is when girls especially were taking selfies in a certain amount of time and deleting them, so it could detect when the selfie was taken, because you'll have the albums on your phone, and then it would detect that it was deleting them. It was then sending them targeted ads for beauty products and things like that. Right? Because it was detecting and following their behavior, right? So these phones are so intrusive to that level. And again, it was targeting that vulnerable population, 8 to about 16-year-olds. Some physical security intersection, right? I think sometimes with schools, right, when it comes to technology, is we over rely on our cameras, our swipe systems, or things like that. We've had issues where a school had $1 million security system, and it was defeated by 2 teachers that were going out to smoke a cigarette, put a little rock in the door, and the door didn't latch, and that's how the attacker got in. Right? Little things like that can just defeat the whole system, right? Probably one of the worst things for us is teachers propping doors. And I say teachers, but I mean staff members and students in general, right? It's that kind of thing. So, when you see these kinds of things, they are tools, they are helpful, but they can fail, right? And they can fail either through user error or through just, normal internal failure. The other thing that I'll kind of highlight that I see a lot, and every once in a while people will pull me in for, and I just want to kind of throw it out there because it does, and it is innocuous, and if we weren't in this threat landscape, we wouldn't worry about it, but when kids are taking pictures inside the buildings, right? And they're doing that, they're location tagging, they're geotagging, they're taking a video. A lot of times we'll have like the senior honor society kids, well, we want to do a video for incoming freshmen, but now you've given up the entire floor plan to your school building, right? And that's now posted online that people can see. And then they can use AI to mimic your school. Oh, okay. So what do we look at as for to protect us, right? So, what am I going to leave you with all this now negativity, right? How do I try to make it a little bit positive, right? I think the biggest piece is education, letting people know what's out there over and over and over and over again. I think that the partnerships are important, but I also want to say while we partner outside and we partner inside, I think the most important partnerships are with the students, right? And again, I'll go back to that North Salem example, right? I'm sure that, Adam and Vince can share multiple examples, but that one trusted adult is the big thing, right? Like some kid coming to you, I did something stupid, now I need help, right? Because that is your response. That is your response piece. We are trying to mitigate and we're trying to prevent, and that's always going to be our best avenue. But we know inevitably it's not if, it's going to be when that happens, what do we do? That's why takeitdown.org exists. That's why they have this way to come through, I like the video clip from before. If I had a video clip here, I'd be showing The Bronx Tale, right? If anybody remember the movie The Bronx Tale, and he's like, tell me I won't get mad, and then inevitably what happens? Robert De Niro starts yelling at his kid, right? That was the Italian household I grew up in, right? Every time I did something wrong, tell me I won't get mad, I would tell him I would get yelled at, right? So we don't want that to happen with kids, and I think that's where schools can breach that, and I think that's just so important. And it doesn't have to be the principal, it doesn't have to be the superintendent, it could be anybody in that school building, that one trusted adult, right? There's an old study, Reclaiming Youth at Risk, where it measured student success by graduation rate in high school off of starting in middle school, and it almost doubled, right, that graduation rate from about 45% with at-risk populations to about 90%. If they had that one trusted adult. The layered technology approach, always important. Integrated systems, a lot of good stuff out there. Lockdown buttons, this, that, whatever it may be, I think is great. I just think you have to layer it like an onion, right? Like you can't rely on one thing. And at the end of it all, your most vulnerable piece, right, is either going to be the technology failing or the people doing what they're not supposed to. So you have to kind of bring that together. And then the last piece is your threat assessment teams, right? Looking at things before they happen, right? We are looking at behaviors of concern on individuals, right? And if we see that in the digital realm, the virtual realm, the real realm, right, we can then make that connection and connect them further to the school community.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you.